Okay, so maybe we can't actually go on vacation, but that doesn't mean we can't explore new places to discover. So come with me as I journey across all 7 continents and read the best literature these countries have to offer. Come join me as we go around the world in 325 days. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cozy Corner. My name is Lee and this is my library. So grab a mug of something yummy and settle in for some talk of books. Today we are headed on another installment of our adventure called Around the World in 325 Days. Because travel is limited. In this world, we are still living through an epidemic, and we have to be careful with how we travel. And what better way to travel than through books? It's free travel, or very inexpensive travel if you order your books online and don't check them out from the library. So if you don't know how Around the World works, we will be taking the entirety of 2021, and every few months traveling to a different continent of the 7 that are in the world, and reading literature based on some of the countries in those continents. We by no means can hit every country, so if we do explore a continent and we don't feature a country that you think I should read, feel free to leave it down in the comments below. All the information about the curation of these titles would be down in the description. Please go check them out. They have exceptional reading lists and great recommendations. But for January, February, and March, we have been exploring the continent of North America, and we covered the United States, Canada, Mexico, the Dominican Republic, and the Bahamas. And I am currently working towards finishing Wind from the Carolinas, which is the Bahamas title, and The Brief and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. I'm about 2/3 of the way done with that one. I am a third of the way done with Wind from the Carolinas, so I have a little bit of catching up to do, but Book March Madness was a huge time. For the rest of April and the month of May, we will be covering the continent of South America. I'm really excited about this one. We have some exceptional titles. Some of them are familiar and some of them were brand new to me. So let me walk you through the books for South America. Here is the stack. I have one missing at the moment because it's on hold at the library, but we'll talk about that one right away at the beginning so we can get on to the ones that I actually have with me. The first country we will be traveling to is Colombia, a country that is full of rich history, and I'm excited to read a slice of life about this country. So we will be reading the book 100 Years of Solitude by Jose Arcadio Buendia, I believe is how you pronounce his name. This takes place over 7 generations, I think, of the Buendia family. He himself is the patriarch, and he sets the city of Macondo in the middle of a swamp. I believe it's a utopian, dystopian city, if I'm reading correctly. But this follows the history of this particular family, which is actually incredibly similar to Wind from the Carolinas. Very similar, at least sequential story, but it follows that particular, the Buendia family, from pre-colonial times towards the tail end of the 19th century, all the way up to the 1920s. So it's a big family matter, and it sounds real interesting. It's gotten incredible reviews. I know it's an incredibly popular book, so I'm excited to check that one off my TBR. The next country we will be traveling to is Argentina, which, I mean, I'm enough of a Broadway fan to be excited about that. Evita is great. This book is called Heartbreak, Tango, and it is by Manuel Puig. And I got this actually from ILL from Cornell College, I think, in Iowa. Yeah, so it came from a college library, so that's fun. It is unfortunately a little sun damaged, obviously not checked out a lot, so I'm happy to rescue it. I love, yeah, the last person to check this out was in 1978. So this is the story of Juan Carlos, who is a self-proclaimed Casanova, and it follows the tales of him and his working man best friend, and they share the seduction, love, heartbreak of those 2 men and all of the women that they interact with. It is a really interesting combination from what I have read of various summaries of high and low art. So think things along the lines of things like Prince and the Pauper, that kind of story where they're 2 polar opposite characters and how they blend together, but also incredibly, you know, different lives shoved together, so something akin to The Great Gatsby. I'm really excited because this book has a blend of styles that I have not read before. It's almost like a documentary style with a little bit of radio drama, like radio theater type thing thrown in here, because it is sort of a weird juxtaposition of, you know, that golden age Hollywood style story, while also focusing a lot on the sort of late development of small village life, which I am a small town girl, but I love the indulgent nature of some of the more I don't know, fancy ways of living. So I'm excited to read this one, all set in Argentina. I think it's a romance, if I'm remembering correctly, but I'm excited to see how this one unfolds because, again, no one's checked this out in a while, so I want to see if it's worth a read by any of you. Next, we will be traveling to Brazil with Gabriela, Clove, and Cinnamon by Jorge Amado. I'm interested to read this one because Portuguese is a language that intimidates me a lot. I was once given a children's book that was written in Portuguese from my grandma, and for the longest time, it's so close to so many different other languages, but it's so different and beautiful, and I could not figure out how to read it. But I'm excited to read about this culture. This follows a town in Brazil called Ilhues, I think is how you pronounce it, around 1925, and it starts off with, I think, a murder by a colonel in the Brazilian army who finds his wife having an affair with someone else and he kills him. But the main story, I think, takes place with a migrant worker whose name is Nasib Saad, I think, who just lost his cook at this restaurant, and so he hires Gabriela and is incredibly impressed with her abilities to cook and also by her beauty, and falls in love with her, but it's a little bit of an issue because he is an immigrant and she is a native Brazilian. So there's, you know, lust, love, intrigue, a little mystery, all wrapped up in this one small town in Brazil. This book is chunky, so I'm kind of anticipating it taking a while, but I have a feeling from what I have read in this book, the excerpts, that it might move really quickly. This also actually came from the University of Iowa libraries, so I've gotten 2 books from ILL on loan from colleges, so that's cool. So after that, we will be traveling to Chile with Eva Luna by Isabel Allende. So Eva, I think, is orphaned, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, she's the daughter of a professor and a gardener, and she winds up orphaned and estranged and from the rest of her family, and she's a servant as this story takes place. And so her life is kind of bleak, but she is a natural, gifted storyteller and can weave these worlds with her ability to tell stories. And she reminds me from this description a little bit of Anne of Green Gables. If you remember that scene in Anne with an E, the TV show, or the Netflix show, she's at the train station selling her stories to buy enough money to afford a train ticket. And so they talk about in the description that Eva shares her stories as a form of currency, which I think is a really beautiful concept. But as she's sharing these stories of her own life, she introduces this massive cast of characters. There is like a street urchin turned thief who eventually becomes part of a guerrilla movement. There's some trans representation in here, a grandmother, I think, who is a Catholic, I think, who also like invents her own patron saints to suit her needs. There's also a Lebanese immigrant who befriends her, and basically all of these stories culminate into how Eva's fate plays out. You know, drama, comedy, history, rebellion, that kind of thing, all wrapped up in a story that sort of highlights the power of the imagination. This also kind of gives me, I haven't looked too much into this, but it kind of gives me a little bit of Don Quixote vibes in terms of, you know, are these stories made up? Are they real? I don't know. I have heard of this book. I have never read it before, obviously, but I'm excited. It's gotten rave reviews. She's a New York Times best-selling author, so we love those. I'm excited to read this one. And last but not least, the final country we will be traveling to is the country of Peru, and we will be reading Death in the Andes by Mario Vargas Llosa. We have another Nobel Prize winner, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just Kazuo Ishiguro, who I love with my whole heart. So this is a book surrounded by a mystery of 3 missing men. And the belief is that the Shining Path guerrillas in that particular part of the world have taken them hostage. And so I think he's a corporal. Yeah, he's an army corporal, Latuma, and his man-at-arms, Tomas, are dispatched to go and investigate this mystery. And they end up at this town where the 3 men are from, I'm assuming, and the town inherently distrusts these people, Latuma and Tomas, and don't like them at first. And so Tomas sort of breaks down the barriers by sharing this very lurid story of himself and the romance he had with a prostitute. And all of that is taking place with the mystery of these 3 men unfolding. So it sounds like it's going to be a really good, maybe a little bit of comedy. I don't know. I might be just reading too much into that, but it is a very atmospheric, suspenseful story full of rich history. And I don't really read too many suspense books. I have a few thrillers that I'm working my way through at the moment, but I'm really excited to read more about that kind of thing. So I'm excited for this one too. Again, this month, next month and a half or so, will be such a wonderful celebration of international literature. I'm so excited to have these authors be represented in my TBR, and I really encourage you all to do this with me. These stories sound so exceptional, and I can't wait to see what happens with them, and I think we just really need to take the time to expand our reading horizons and make sure that we are celebrating lauded authors from all over the world. Because, you know, people talk so much about traveling around the world, which is incredibly important, and if you ever get the opportunity, please don't miss out on that opportunity. I have been fortunate enough to have traveled a lot in my lifetime, but reading can get you near enough to that point of education and exposure to other cultures, and a want and a drive to be able to understand those people and connect with those people. So buy translated copies of literature written in other languages. Take the time to explore what books are popular on the other hemisphere, you know. I think it's an incredibly important thing to do, especially as we move, hopefully, toward an age of more tolerance and acceptance and inclusion, that we are able to make sure that we have exposure to that. So again, I would encourage anybody who is interested in participating in this challenge with me to do so. I hope that if you have read any of these books, that you'll be willing to share your reviews and your thoughts on them. And like I said before, if I did miss a country, because there are so many more countries in South America than the 5 that I have highlighted, and you have other incredible book recommendations, whether the authors are from those countries or the story takes place in those countries, please let me know your suggestions. I would love to add more to my TBR. This has been a really fulfilling booktube challenge for me this particular past couple months, and I have really benefited a lot from exposure to these stories. So I hope you all will not miss out on this opportunity. So I think that's all I have to say. I'm excited to include these 5 on my TBR, plus the one that's in the library that makes it 5. I think that's it. If you enjoyed this video or are excited to participate in this new installment of Around the World in 325 Days, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my booktube channel. I really love it that I have a space where I can share all this wonderful stuff, and I belong to a community that is equally invested in doing the same thing. So go ahead and like and subscribe. Comment down below whatever you would like to comment down below, even if it has nothing to do with this particular video. We love bookish thoughts and opinions here. A huge thank you to the friends and family who have readily supported me along this journey. It truly does mean the world to me, and I can't wait to see what's on the next page. Cheers.